For this part, we're going to be looking at how to draw a more fully fleshed out mannequin, transitioning from the stick figure to the, let's say, the proper mannequin, right? Proper as in how I usually do it in my head. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. Feel free to explore as well with your own approach to drawing the mannequin as well. So I'm gonna grab the blue pen because we're on a roll. Same thing as before with our mannequin, our stick figure. We start with a, let's do it here in the middle. I start with a rectangle. The rectangle is important. It's going to be our head. It's going to be our head. And by the way, before I start, one of my main tips that I usually give when I'm doing drawing lessons, especially when it comes to drawing the human body, is that you should avoid as much as you can only sticking to drawing the head or head and neck in your drawings, and never actually go into the part where you draw the human body, right? Unless that's the piece that you are doing where it's just head focused. Try to always draw the human body complete. That forces you to start thinking as well about the human body and transitioning from just drawing the head to drawing the full thing, right? So for example, I might have a piece here in this sketchbook that it's just, let's say, where is it? This one is just head focused. It's a portrait of my wife. But for this one, the intention was clear. I wanted to do a portrait of my wife. This is what I was aiming to do. But for the most part, and then, for example, this one is a good example. This one here, we go from the head and we start also having the body, a bit of the torso, a bit of the hands as well. But the majority of the drawings here feature the full, complete body. No, not this one, of course. This one is just the shirt. Yeah, but this one, full body. This one, 4 people in a row, full body for the most part. This one as well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A lot of people, full body as well. Because if you always are stuck in drawing the head, for example, it can be hard to leave that space, that safe space, and start doing also the drawing the human body. That's my main tip. Try to always explore drawing the full, complete body of the person, because that will help you in the long run as you start adding in the hours, as you start adding in the experience in drawing the full human body. This would be my extra tip. Now that you bought a course, you get the extra tip as well. Anyway, going back to our mannequin. As I was saying, the rectangle makes the head. And why the rectangle is important? Because then you also want to be able to do some basic rotation as well, so that you can see the thing in 3 dimensions. Let me zoom in. Oh, perfect. Seeing the rectangle in 3 dimensions will help you as well as you start drawing more obtuse angles. Right. And then some artists do this line over here, which is slightly off the center. So the center would be here, so a bit above, to showcase where the eyes would be, and then the medium line just for the for where the medium line is, so that you can eventually get to the nose part. For me, I usually don't draw that line. I don't consider it. It comes already naturally, but we will discuss that line when we get to the head part. Then, we have, like our stick figure, we have our neck. We have our neck. Perfect. Which is a line that, you see my neck, for example, it's not a big portion of my face. So make it, you can also measure yourself and in your case and see how much is it. It's not as big as the head for the most part, but you can play around with the dimensions of it. And then we get to the actual torso. For the torso, we're going to do the line of the sternum as before. So this would be our sternum. The thing is that we're going to draw a big rectangle. And let's not focus so much on the proportions. I can give you some pointers-ish in a bit, but we have our rectangle here. And for the rectangle, one key part to memorize is that first you divide it here in the middle of the rectangle, right? And then you apply in your head the following subdivisions. Oh, this one. Which is, you go 1, so you go 1, 2, 3, 3, with this rectangle here in the middle being the biggest part, being the biggest rectangle. Why do I subdivide it in the middle? Because this is where, and each line has a purpose. Why is it that I subdivide in the middle? And because in the middle is where the rib cage would end. Cool. So in the middle here, rib cage. And this first line here, the red line, is where the chest would be. So the end of the chest for both male and female. Of course, if you're drawing a character that has breasts, the breasts can extend a bit lower into this region here of the rib cage. And here, right, this, and by the way, I would just move this line a bit here, a bit lower, just for a more natural feeling. If you connect here to here, this would be your vastus abdominis, your abdominal muscle. And this area here, between this middle line and the middle line here, and the orange, and the 3, it's where there's bendability. It bends, because you have the abdominal muscles that allows you to bend. There's some bending action going on there. Then this line over here for the genitals of the character, and then you just complete your character here by drawing the serratus and the obliques, which is just a line. And then you have your hips. This last rectangle here, you can think it's the hips. This is the chest. This middle portion here would be the abdominals. Abdominals. So from the middle line to here. Of course, when I say the 2, I'm actually referring to this middle rectangle. This is the chest. This is the hips, as I was saying before. Just that the second rectangle in the middle has a line dividing it. Right. What's next? I will do a clean mannequin here, just to continue, because I don't have space to continue with this one because of the lines. but the same purpose applies. I have my rectangle here. I have my neck, and then my big rectangle for the torso. This one is quite big. Then chest, the middle part, which happens to be the longest, and then the hips. Same thing as before. I imagine a medium line here. Draw the rib cage, and the rib cage, it's a bit like, it's like a squeezed out Pac-Man. It's a bit like this. Pac-Man from the video game from, I think, Atari. So it's like if you had imagined Pac-Man from the front, so it's just a bit squeezed out. And then we have our line here just for the abdominals. And this is the part that can squeeze, it can bend, as I was saying. And then the line for the genitals, the pubic region, right? Just confirm if the camera is focusing. Perfect. Then we get to the arms, and I'll do another mannequin then also to cover the legs. If you remember from our mannequin, our stick figure, this line here in the middle, right, and this line over here, these are very important lines because I'm going to add my ball joint here and my ball joint here, and the ball joints, you start to see that I'm focusing on a couple of important parts that I'll summarize for you in a bit. But these are the parts that are, I think, important to memorize. I have my ball joint here, and then I have my arm. As soon as I get here to the middle part, where the rib cage ends, this is where the elbow starts. This is where the elbow is. And then as soon as my forearm starts, it ends here where the line of the hip that I just spoke about. Hence why I said there's a couple of important lines to memorize. This line in the middle for the elbow joint, this line over here for the arm joint. And then same thing, and then you would have your arm here, and then you would have your fingers. So far, what are the important lines to memorize? As I said before, this line here for the chest, and like I said before, if the character has breasts that are bigger, they can extend over the line. Makes sense. This line here in the middle, because it also gives you direction on where the rib cage ends, where the muscle can start to bend, because this whole area here, which is abdominal muscle, that I'm going to color in red, it can bend, can squeeze. And then you have this line over here, right, where it tells you that the hips are starting. And then this here, end of the hips. And the line for the end of the lips signals you where the full length of the arm ends and the hand begins. So important lines to memorize. And another line, of course, this one here, which tells you the sternum. This is where the sternum is, uh, and where the shoulder will then subsequently be located, right? So this, for the torso alone, you have multiple ways to measure and to help you assist in the setting up the arms as well. And then, of course, because this is a rectangle, you can play around with the proportions. Make a bigger torso, make a smaller torso, make a lengthier torso. And also, by the way, this acts as a reference guide, these lines, right? This line number 1, line number 2, line number 3, line number 4, and line number 5. These act as references. They are not absolute truths. You can have an arm that maybe stops, or the elbow is a bit higher, is located a bit higher. Maybe the reverse. Maybe you can have arms that extend well beyond the hip and go all the way perhaps to the middle of the legs. There's no, this acts as a reference. Just for that, as you are starting from going from a mannequin, from a stick figure to a mannequin. So this is important to disclose. And then, as I said before, because this is a rectangle, then you can also start playing around and doing it in 3 dimensions. And start to imagining what would these lines look like in 3 dimensions. Right. And by the way, don't forget that, because, for example, in this example, I drew the line like this, and I drew the line like this. A bit of a perspective preview, but this line over here that I just drew, when it gets to this side of the rectangle, they start to converge into this point. See? But yeah, you start to think, okay, how would this look like in 3 dimensions? You see, I drew the rib cage, and you also see that I'm drawing the rib cage not as the full set of bones, right? You have the clavicule, and by the way, I think I made a mistake. Yeah, this line here, it's not the sternum. This line over here, anatomy, mistake 101. These are the clavicules. The sternum is this bone here in the middle. That where all the rib bones, the rib cages connect to. But yeah, just get back to it. You see that I'm not telling you to memorize all of these bones that make up the rib cage, right? That's not the purpose of this course. The purpose is to give you some idea of what are the key points that you need to focus on when drawing the human body, and then from there you can start exploring as well what else you want to add to your repertoire, right? In terms of drawing the human body, what else that you want to add? Do you want to be able to add skeleton pieces as well? So for that, you're going to need to study a bit more the bones, right? At least bare minimum, where a couple of the bones are located to give the realism. For example, this skull, I just butchered a bit. I studied quite extensively in university, but it's been a while since I last drew a skull. Been out of my edgy phase for a bit. Yeah. What I meant to say then is that this makes up the basics of drawing the upper torso. I still have some space here, so I'm going to talk very briefly. I'm going to talk as well about I'm going to talk as well about drawing the legs. The same thing. We're going to just do our rectangle here. We're going to do a rectangle here. Same thing as before. Same exercise. Again, this rectangle here in the middle is a bit longer. It's a bit wider. And then if you go back to what we learned about the stick figure, when it comes time to draw the legs, you imagine that there's here this piece here, this connection, same as the shoulder. This is where the femur connects to the rib cage. If we want to get technical, the femur is a bit like this. It actually connects here to the rib cage because the femur goes like this. So if we want to get technical, but we're not going to get technical because there's no need to memorize all of these parts about the bone. So you imagine this line here, this piece here, which it's this head of the femur, and then you go inwards. You go inwards, like we said before on the stick figure part. You go inward, and then we're going to imagine a big circle here, this makes the patella. This is the patella. And the patella then sits on top of this, the tibia, which is a bit of a triangle shape. So I recommend that you memorize the circle and the triangle. And then it goes like this. And then we have some triangles for our feet. Not triangles, like swords, sword shapes. Feet are my weakness. I cannot draw feet very well, so keep that in mind. But yeah, this would make the lines for the legs. Bringing it all together, we're going to change sheets. And I will summarize the important lines for you when drawing the human body. So stick with me if you can. First of all, said before, I'll say it again. You have your rectangle for the head. Can be big, can be small. It's a rectangle. Then you have your neckline, and then you have your clavicules, right? And then, which makes up the beginning of the box, of the big rectangle. And then you have the big rectangle. Big in the sense that it's bigger than the one that you just drew for the head. Then you subdivide. You can start by subdividing in the middle. This gives you the end of the rib cage. And then you can imagine the first line here and the second line here. So this would be your chest, and this would be your hips. Then you add your shoulder, the shoulder joint. Then you go all the way here, all the way here. You have your elbow here, you have your elbow here. Then you go all the way here, straight line, here, perfect. Then you have your joints for the hand. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Then we go here. femur goes inwards. Then you have your patella. And then you have a triangle here, which where the tibia sits. No, sorry, where the femur sits in relation to the tibia. And then you draw like a curve, because the bone is slightly curved here. Then you just draw some ball joints, and then you make your way to, you try to fool everyone by trying to draw the best feet that you can. And here you have your basic mannequin that I employ quite a lot. And then of course I start subdividing it as well in my head by grabbing a pen, red pen, and then I start making it work and look like a human person. So of course the neck is not a pencil line, it's thick. And then there's a couple of muscles that you need to memorize. The first one is this one, which I'm completely blanking out on the name of this. It's the muscle here, Jesus, let me go on Google. The trapezius, of course, the trapezius. So you need to memorize that there's this thing here called the trapezius that then connects to the shoulder, right? Then you have your rib cage here, sternum, and the clavicule. And the clavicule, it's not necessarily a straight line, there's a bit of a curve. It's more like this. It's more like this. But depending on if you're drawing the character, the clavicule might not be seen, but if you observe the clavicule that I have, it goes like here and then starts having a curvature towards the shoulder. Same as before. Drawing my squeezed out Pac-Man. Drawing my muscles here, hips start. And again, this part, bending can happen. By bending, it's squeezing, that this gives you mobility to the torso. And then here, follows along the line. Pro tip, another very important part to memorize. When you get to this part over here, the first thing that you're going to notice is that this inner line follows along much more when it gets to this part over here. So the inner line continues. This part here breaks up, this line on the outside. So this one continues inside. This one, as soon as it gets to this where the knee starts, the line breaks, and then it goes from this to vertical, like this, while the inside is like this. So outside and inside. And then you add your the gastrocnemius. So this one a bit wonky, but it is what it is. Cool. So the gastrocnemius goes like this. A bit like this. while this part, this outside line, follows along the bone. Cool. For the arm, a bit simpler, not as many tricks. Like so. Yeah. Bit simpler. You just follow along the shapes, and a couple of key lines is that this line over here, there's a bit of a pop because it follows outward this joint, and here when we go look at the shape, it's a bit like this. The forearm muscle goes inside, and then another one starts here. Not another muscle, but the bone around it, the muscle around it, because there's a whole lot of muscles that make up this part here. And there's a bit of a joint here, like the bone termination, not a joint. Here that's also important to memorize. And this line here follows along the joint. And this part is more straightforward. But the forearm is a bit more complex because of this entry here, which is, it can be hard to memorize, so you do need to do your best to memorize it as best as you can. The sternum itself connects to the joint of the shoulder, to the bone as well. Not to the bone, through ligaments. Yeah. Complex, right? Complex. The idea is that you play along with these shapes. Don't be afraid to look at yourself in the mirror and learn as much as you can, and try and play around with this mannequin as much as you can. And I will now start to break down individual components. But again, this goes into what I was just saying in a bit. It's important that you try to draw the full body a lot, and not just focus on drawing specific parts, like the head, which is a common trap that I see a lot of artists falling into. They can draw the head just fine, cool. Okay, now expand your drawing, make it more complete, make it a scene. I cannot draw the human body. So you want to be comfortable, and the best way to do that is to get into the habit of drawing the human body as often as you can. Complete. This is important, complete. Not just focusing on either the head, the neck, or the torso. Yeah. For the next lessons, we're going to start breaking it down a bit more, the anatomy part of individual areas. But again, the focus is, for the most part, draw as much as you can the complete human body. Get into the habit of doing that. See you in the next lesson.